I just got my first VA disability payment. It came a lot sooner than I thought because of the whole timelines that I've seen from other folks, online. I thought it was going to take a lot longer, but it didn't. It hit everything just as smooth as possible. But I think it was because I actually got everything in time to the VA on time, and there was absolutely no hiccups. And I'm super thankful for that. And I really want to share exactly what I did in order to get all that stuff on time. Back when I was doing the looking at the DAV, I was utilizing the DAV to do all my VA claim stuff. I had to walk into their office a year prior to my retirement date, and they basically turned me away at that point, but for good reason, right? I just they only accept people between 180 to 90 days, right? So I marked it on my calendar, as we always tell people to do. Mark it on your calendar for 180 days prior to your end of active service. I did exactly that, came back 180 days prior to my end of active service. And that was on maybe 1 July, right? Because my end of active service was 1 December. I didn't have all my documents in place, right? We went over everything, and the lady there was going through all my stuff. She was asking me for certain documents. I think it was like birth certificates or something. You have to, for your dependents. Didn't have all that stuff, so we rescheduled, right? So I came back on 12th July of 2023. And at that point in time, I had everything I needed, and we actually were able to submit every piece of my BDD claim, my benefits delivery or discharge. So for anybody who doesn't know, that is basically an expedited way to submit your VA claim, so you don't do it on the back end and it just takes months, right? So while you're still in uniform, you submit your BDD claim, and you basically get a VA rating. It's supposed to be as soon as you get out, as soon as you hit your EAS. Sometimes it works that way, sometimes it doesn't. You can just search online and you see different folks have different scenarios and different things that happen to them for whatever reason. It doesn't happen upon EAS. For me, it did. And after I submitted my BDD claim on the 12th of July of 2023, it was basically a waiting game, right? Like you submit everything, then I was told you're going to get contacted by, I guess it's a contractor, whoever the VA contracts out to do your medical appointments, right? And it all happened around August timeframe, right? So from July to August, I got a call saying, hey, look, we have to schedule all these appointments. It goes based off of whatever you're claiming, right? So if you're claiming eye issues, they set you up with an optometrist. If you're claiming back issues, they set you up with, I don't know, some other doctor, right? Some physician. I was lucky enough that all my appointments were basically maybe a mile away from where I was living and working. There was one appointment that was like 3 hours away. It's my optometry appointment. And when I got a hold of the contractor, I think it was like QSF. I can't remember the name of the contractor, the medical contractor. But when I did get a hold of them, they basically told me if I wanted to reschedule, I needed to reschedule within the next week because it is a very tight timeline if I want to stay within the bounds of the BDD claim. And when I said, hey, look, if I'd like to see if there's any other contractor or any other optometrist that's nearby, like closer to me, because I didn't feel comfortable driving 3 hours away just for a 30-minute appointment, right? They basically told me, hey, look, you're basically going to have to wait to see if they can set me up with somebody else. And at that point, it would prolong my BDD claim. It would no longer be a BDD claim at that point because it was going to take longer than a few months to set me up with somebody else, right? So then I'd have to do a regular VA claim after I got out of the military. I wasn't willing to do that. I just sucked it up and took the 3-hour drive. My wife took off work. She took me out there and we basically just got it done. It was exactly what it was, a 30-minute appointment. They just gave me a regular eye test and back my way I was back home, But with that, I'm glad I did that because that kept me in line with my timelines, right? I didn't have any hiccups or anything like that after the fact. So that happened around mid-August or so. I got all my appointments done. I didn't have to go back for any other supplemental appointments or anything like that. Then it was just a waiting game again. So I officially retired on 1 December 2023. And, I was doing the same thing that I'm sure most people do who retire. They're checking VA.gov every single day. Hey, this thing still says pending or reviewing or whatever. I mean, that was me every day, like several times a day. I'd be at work, like reloading the page, like, come on, VA, give me something. I was told that I'd get something the day after or soon after that. And it just wasn't happening. And I was like, crap, man, maybe something didn't go right, or, it's the government, right? They're not going to do anything fast, from my experience, right? Having worked in the government for 20 years. But 11 days later, on December 11th, it was, I got to work and I logged on to VA.gov and opened it up, and it said, VA claim. Here's your VA claim, right? I can't remember the exact words, but basically it showed my VA disability rating on there. And probably 10 minutes later, I got a call from the lady who helped me at DAV. And she's like, hey, have you seen your VA rating came through? I'm like, yeah, yes, ma'am, I did. Thank you for all the assistance, etc. And then she went down for me, like, here's what you rate based on that, etc., etc. Went online and started like looking up things like, hey, look, what do I rate with this and that? When's the first payment coming through, et cetera. So after December 11th, again, it was another waiting game, so I got my retirement pay before I got my VA disability pay, right? So my first retirement pay came on the 2nd of January, 2024. So about a month after I had retired, I was fully expecting that. I was hoping there, but it went smooth as ever. And I was wondering, like, what's up with this VA disability pay? I thought I'd be getting it around the same time, right? Because I just didn't ask that question. I didn't even think to ask her that. Like, hey, when am I going to get this first disability direct deposit? And sure enough, I was looking online, and people were saying that it usually takes about 60 days after your actual claim comes up on your VA.gov. Actually, when they actually process 60 days, and sure enough, it happened about 60 days. Just this month, the 1st of February, 2024, I received my first VA disability claim. Any hiccups or anything like that. And, I was thankful. And I think it because I submitted everything on time. I gave them no issues and no pushback on, trying to reschedule anything. I made sure that I rescheduled all my work stuff. And I let folks at work know that I'm going to be focused on my out processing, my VA disability stuff. Let my boss know at that time. So he kind of gave me all the time I needed to do all that stuff. Because, I'm going to be transitioning to, the civilian world. Basically, I need to get all this stuff up so I can successfully transition, because I'm not going to be wearing the uniform forever. And I made it clear to them, and I communicated that with them. And I think a lot of folks, when I've read online, a lot of folks don't do all that communication, and then they encounter issues with their chain of command. But I let them know up front, I'm doing all my stuff. But yeah, no hiccups, no pushback on rescheduling. Everything went smooth. When I went in for my medical appointments, I made sure that I was as detailed as possible on those forms that they give you. They send it to you via mail, and they also provide it to you if you didn't bring it with you at the medical appointment office. But I put dates, I put times, anything, and I went through my entire medical record to make sure I was as accurate as possible, and give the medical examiner, whoever was there, the physician, as little work as possible, so they're not scouring through my entire medical record. I kind of tapped things out for them. I got as detailed as possible, just to make their life a little bit easier, right? And I'm sure they were appreciative of that. I don't know whether or not that went into the VA rating or what, but it did help out. So not anybody else has encountered anything like that. I've seen folks that have had prolonged VA claim processing timelines. A couple of folks on the Facebook group, the military retirement group, they had mentioned that they've got like 2 years of back pay because it was just the processing was like that far out for whatever reason. Sometimes the government doesn't get it right. Sometimes they do.
Yeah, and I wanted to tap on one thing real quick as far as checking your VA disability rating. You said you did it online, and
I
just to
did.
keep it as low density as possible, let's talk about 2 or 3 ways that you can actually get online to get to your VA disability rating to check it and see and get your letter and download it and things like that.
Yeah. So I use so when you go on the VA.gov site, it gives you a couple of options to log in, right? I had all my stuff set up on DS logon, right? And I think there's like ID.me and then login.gov. I think there is, a couple other ones. But being that I work for the Navy now, and I have a CAC, right? So I just log on through that. And I work in a secured area, so I can't bring my phone with me inside of work. So it's just a lot easier for me to do that. Uh, but when I do log on via DS logon, it gives me a bunch of pages that come up like, hey, where do you want to log in today, right?
Mm-hmm.
VA.gov, or do you want to go to TRICARE, or do you want to go just a bunch of different places, right? But I find personally that the DS logon is probably the easiest for me. I don't know if you use something different or what, but that's the easiest for me.
Yeah, and I did my VA claim well after the fact, at least the part of my VA claim about 2 years later because I missed the window on the BDD. But for me, not having a CAC, and many listeners out there may or may not have a CAC as well, which means base access. You have a card that you can log into a computer with.
Yeah,
For those folks, there's a couple that you mentioned, ID.me and login.gov. The one that I use is
that's right.
ID.me. And that is because it's really, for me, it's a simple 2-3 step process. Basically, it's me authenticating to ID me. I log in with my Google account. So it's literally just hit the button and my browser is already set up to log in with my Google account. So that just happens automatically. And then there's an app that you can download with ID me, and we can put a link in the description. And what that app allows you to do is authenticate. So if you've ever used a 2-factor authentication with, say, some kind of authentication app like Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator, it basically just sends you a push notification to your phone, which means it'll pop up with a little thing. You tap on it and says, hey, we think you're logging into the site. Do you really want to log in? You just literally tap
Mhm.
on it, and then it'll continue to log you into the VA.gov website if you're doing it on a computer, or if you're doing it on your phone through the VA.gov app, because I like to do a lot of my stuff on my phone, at least have that option. So if I'm out running around, or if I'm traveling, or if I'm doing something away from my computer, which I sometimes am, I want to be able to check it, especially if you're waiting for a VA claim to come back, or if you're waiting to push some paperwork or download a document like your claims letter. It's nice to be able to have that on your phone, for me anyway. So that's what I tend to use, and it works out pretty well, and it's fairly straightforward as far as logging in. I think you have to do like a verification process where you upload a copy of your driver's license or something like that to
Yeah.
validate it's actually you. But yeah, for me, that's what I do. It's a pretty simple process, and everything else is basically locked down with Face ID or whatever the login for the phone is itself. It's pretty secure
Right.
and pretty easy. And I have everything at my fingertips. If I happen to go to like somewhere that I need a copy of my claim letter, I can just pull it up on my phone and have it, and if I need to download it. So
Yeah. And no, that's great information, man. And I have the same thing. I got the VA.gov app. And one thing I learned, because I know that a lot of places ask for your DD 214 or like your disability letter, that you can download on there, and you can actually check off whether or not you wanted to show your compensation that you're receiving or not. Recently did this for like the parks, the national parks thing, and I got a military veterans thing card in the mail. I save all my stuff on my files app on my phone. That's probably the easiest way for me, man. I made a folder that says retirement folder, and I have everything saved on there, including like my medical documents, just for easy access, just in case I need them. DD 214, all the DD 214s that I've acquired over the course of my career. What else? VA letters. The what's that letter that you can print out? The civil service letter, just in case, so you can attach that to your federal resume. How many times I've been on somewhere else, and not at my home computer, and I'm trying to apply for a job or something. I'm like, shoot, I didn't I don't have my civil service letter to attach as an attachment to this resume, this USA Jobs resume. So that's huge too. Just keeping everything in a file format somewhere on your phone, easily accessible, so you can, just at a push of a button, access all that stuff. It's great. I mean, technology, right? It's awesome. Yeah.
It doesn't stop.
No, heck no. No. And, talking about apps too, have you seen the App Store on the VA.gov page?
I have not. I haven't looked at it.
So the store, I just had to be at work, and I was like, you know what? Let me see what kind of apps are to veterans, right? And they have a ton of apps on here. Like, I'd have to show you it. If you just VA apps, there's like anger management apps, and there's cognitive processing therapy coach apps, mindfulness coach. So I use a certain app to fall asleep, right? It really helps me out a lot. And I pay for it every year, right? I'm not going to say the name of the app, but I pay for it every year, and it's not that expensive or anything. But I was looking at some other apps that are maybe lower cost that I can utilize for, mindfulness or like meditations and things like that, ways to kind of help out your mind and release stress. And I came across, these VA mobile apps, and I don't think they cost anything. And you just download them to your phone. Simple as that. Mindfulness coach, PTSD coach, PTSD family coach, just a ton of stuff. Good resources for folks who probably need that sort of thing. Easily accessible on VA.gov. I'm on it right now. I just Googled VA apps. That's it. And it all came up. Just awesome. Just a lot of stuff that they offer.
Yeah, they have a lot of things, a lot of links, a lot of resources for veterans and different kinds of job fairs and stuff like that on the VA site. So for sure, yeah, check that out. I wanted to backtrack just one sec and double down on the storage of these key documents like the VA letter, your DD-214s, or your retirement orders or anything like that once you get out of the military, even before you get out of the military. You had mentioned the Files app, which is an iOS app built into the iPhone and the Mac, I believe, as well. I mean, it's part of Mac.
Yeah.
But for those who don't use iPhone, you can also use something like Google Drive. And again, it depends on your risk tolerance of, your PII and your personal information and stuff like that. But there's been multiple times where I've had to send a copy of a piece of paper for an application for something to the government, and they want my social security number on there. And so it's please use your own risk tolerance as a litmus test for those kind of things.
Absolutely.
But you can also use things like Google Drive, set up a folder and put stuff in there and just lock it down so only you have access to it, because it's really good. It's handy to have these things available if you're going to apply for school, if you're going to apply for a job, if you go to a job fair and maybe they want a copy of your VA letter, you can literally just pull it up on the spot and just email it to them or airdrop it or however you want to send it to them. And you never know, that might be the difference between you getting the job and you walking away not getting the job. So
yeah. Oh, absolutely. So what I was doing in job fairs, if I could, so I was bringing resumes, right? And you want to tailor your resume to a lot of different things, right? If you may encounter 10 different kinds of jobs, and maybe you bring your master resume. So I was actually brought a card with me, almost like a business card with a QR code. And I tell folks, hey, look here, just to make it easier on everybody, just scan the QR code on my card. And my card basically said like what I can offer the company, right? Basically like my professional traits, right? Leadership and, organization, et cetera. They scan it, takes them straight to my LinkedIn. And folks are like, oh, I've not seen this before. Like that's, pretty high tech. It was low tech, but it was like literally just my stuff instead of me bringing pieces of paper that you're just going to stuff in your bag. Here's my card. Here's a picture of me on the card. Here's my my QR code. Scan it. You get all of my on there. So I got some good feedback from that. I have not had to use that in order to, have a job now, but for anybody out there looking for a job, that might be something that you might want to look at, is adding a QR code to your business card, maybe. Just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. And I'll ask about the medical rescheduling. I know you had said that there's a small time frame. It's about 2 weeks where they try to get all the medical exams in. If you miss that and you have to reschedule, what then happens? Like, do they push you to the back of the line, or how does that work?
Yeah. So that's what was explained to me was, so I had a lot of stuff going on, right? A lot, like I was moving stuff. My schedule was full. And when I asked about rescheduling that optometrist appointment that was like 3 hours away, I was like, look, what's the next you have available? And they gave me a couple of dates, but it was for that same optometrist. I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to use that optometrist. Let's use somebody else who's like local. Like, oh, well, we need to find somebody else within the contract that may be local, but that could take up to a few months. And I'm wondering, like, why? Why does it need to take up to a few months? You know, they have to find somebody else within the contract, or they're trying to renew a contract with somebody else, which basically meant I'd have to go to the back of the line. I would basically bust the clock on that, right? So it would no longer be 180 to 90 days. It'd be less than 90 days, which means I could not turn in a BDD claim for BDD purposes, which means that I would have to submit a regular VA claim, which would ultimately take months to do, you know, on the back end after I got out. But yeah, what the person on the phone explained to me was they have a tight time frame if I want to stay in those BDD bounds, right? So they try to schedule everything within 2 weeks. And when I asked about rescheduling, they try to do it immediately, like the following week. And I'm like, you got anything like 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out? They're like, nope, we got to do it within this time frame. Not much explanation why, except for like that whole contractor thing. But I believe it was because I'm submitting the BDD and they wanted it to stay within a certain time frame. So I feel like they were looking out for me at that point. So I was like, hey, whatever, let's do it. Right. I don't want to fall outside the bounds of this. So I'm willing to work with you. I try to make it as easy as I could for them so they don't have any room to push my stuff back. Right. Because if they can push it back, I believe that they would push it back. I didn't want that. But yeah, it was just a tight timeline. And a lot of folks are going to encounter that. I just talked to a gentleman yesterday who had mentioned, hey, he's got to do like he actually has to go to the field, actual exercise. He's not retiring until like later this year, but he has to do like an exercise around the time when they're trying to schedule him for a medical. He's like, man, I don't know how I'm going to get around that. And my response was, hey, look, with all due respect, you're getting out of the military. Hand that field exercise to somebody else. You know, you're about to transition out of the uniform service into your civilian life. Give that to somebody else. You know, the mission will go on with or without you. Right now, you need to focus on yourself, man. He's like, maybe you're right. I'm like, no, I am right, dude. Somebody else can do that job, you know?
Yeah, you definitely need to take matters into your own hands, and you definitely need to prioritize your own retirement, especially when it comes to the medical stuff. Like I said, mine, I just, for whatever reason, it didn't hit the mark. I turned in all my medical documentation and all the paperwork, and I had it all scanned and everything, but it just, for whatever reason, didn't go through. And I think maybe it's because of the questionnaire that they sent me after. And let me just ask you also, when you were actually putting together the claim, did you have to fill out the I guess it's a DD, I forget what the form number is, and I'll look it up and link it down in the show notes, but there's a form you have to fill out, and it's like I want to say it's like a 4 or 5 page, maybe 6 page form that you have to fill out, that you start to list like all your ailments, everything that you're actually trying to claim on your VA claim. Did you fill that out, or did they sit down, like the VSO sat down with you, the DAV sat down with you? How did that process go?
Yeah, I filled that stuff out myself. How long did it take you to
fill that out?
So what the stuff that comes in the packet, is that what you mean?
The stuff that you do to actually put in the claim, and then afterwards they'll contact you and give you the packet and for each thing. But before you did that, the actual putting in of the claim, like putting that all together.
So I sat down with the at the DAV office. I sat down with my VSO, and we went piece by piece. And basically I sat next to her desk, and she went through everything. So she had mentioned she's just going to go top to bottom, like any headaches. If you got any headaches, she'd input all the information on there. Any earaches, any audiology issues, any jaw issues, optometry issues. Basically, top to bottom is how she did it. And I try to be as descriptive as possible. And it was a little strange too, because it was kind of an open office, right? So there's a guy behind me talking about his ailments and his surgeries and stuff. And so you kind of lean in closer. You're like, yeah, I got this going on, right? So try to be as quiet as possible. They should probably put up some cubicle, partitions there, but that's something for another conversation. But yeah, we did go from top to bottom. She, as I told her about all the stuff that I had going on, she physically typed it into the VA.gov website. And I can still access all that stuff now, like everything that you've claimed and all the stuff that's all the supporting documents that were uploaded. I can physically access that stuff on VA.gov to see what was claimed. So yeah, I'd say if they're not going from top to bottom, make sure that you yourself take it upon yourself. If you're going to be submitting a go from top to bottom and explain everything, like, hey, look, we may have missed, I have ringing in my ear, I get tinnitus. We may have missed that, or we may have missed, my rotator cuff or whatever it might be. Just self-analyze yourself, and start writing it down before you hit the DAV or your VSO. I have issues with everything. And on a scale from 1 to 10, go off of what's the worst pain you felt. If it feels terrible in the morning, if it's like a 7 out of 10 in the morning, rate it as a 7 out of 10, because that's what it feels like every single day in the morning, right? Even though later on in the day after you stretch, it feels like a 4 out of 10. The worst possible feeling is a 7 out of 10. So yeah, it very thorough. The DAV with me was very thorough in doing all of that. And I appreciate that because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't really have anybody to talk to. Well, I did, but I didn't really reach out to a lot of folks prior to this DAV appointment. But I was led through it very effectively from the DAV personnel because they've done it many a time. It's an airplane, man. It's a Sunday. I don't know. Sundays must be flying days. Yeah. But yeah, I guess one of the biggest things I'd say with all of this is as you're getting out of the military, as you're looking towards retirement, even if it's like 5 years prior to your retirement date and you start to get started with all this, gathering paperwork and just knowing that retirement is on the horizon, folks need to make themselves a priority with this. Okay. The mission will always be there. And the military, the Marine Corps, Army, Navy, Air Force, Space Force, whatever, Coast Guard, whatever branch you might be in, even after you get out, it's a machine, right? It's going to keep on, continue on without you. So the biggest thing is yourself, because nobody else is going to do that for you. The military gives you a 5-day course, if that, on transitioning out of the military, the TRS, Transition Readiness Service, or seminar. That is not enough to encompass a 20-year career, year-plus career, right? A lot of folks solely, and that's not it. You need to rely on other folks who have done it. You need to prioritize yourself, communicate with your chain of command on all this stuff. Let them know that, hey, look, I'm going to take time for myself because I need to do these VA documents or VA appointments, or I got to check out. I got to do this or that, whatever. But yeah, the biggest thing is prioritize yourself, your family on your way out of the military, because nobody else is going to do that for you.
Yeah, and I'll just wrap it up and mention a few things. The one big thing that I want to mention is if you are not able to do the BDD process, which is mainly what we're talking about, but if you happen to miss the boat, if you happen to miss the paperwork deadlines, if you have to do it by yourself, because I've done it by myself outside of the BDD process, tried the BDD process, didn't work, tried to do it myself, and I've got my claim in and my claim came back and I got my rating, but I think the best option to do is to reach out to one of these VSOs, one of these veteran service organizations, whether it's the DAV or any other one. There are ones that will charge you money, and there are ones that do not charge you any money. Ideally, you want to go to ones that don't charge you any money. That's your choice. You have to make that decision for yourself and your family. But I would highly, highly, highly recommend to find a VSO or somebody you could reach out to who can walk you through this process, as you mentioned, step by step from top to bottom, because there's things that you're going to miss, and they know what they're looking for, and they know how to fill out that paperwork because that's what they do on a day-to-day basis. So if at all possible, if you're doing a VA claim and it's outside of the boundaries of the BDD process, hopefully it's not, but if it happens to be, reach out to a veteran service organization and have them walk you through that process. That's what they're there for. They're there to help. They're there to provide a service to veterans, to be able to help them along with their veterans claims and their benefits. So if you want to maximize that effort, then the best bet is to reach out to one of these veteran service organizations. Two things I'll say. One is that if you need to reach out to us, Indeed, or to the community, just go to the Facebook page. It's the Military Retirement Group on Facebook. We'll have that linked in the show notes, and you can find us there as well as a whole bunch of other veterans, numbering in the thousands at the moment, where you can get your questions answered. You can ask questions. You can help answer other people's questions if you have some insights. And if you have any questions or anything that you think we need to talk about that we can discuss or bring somebody onto the show to discuss with them about, feel free to let us know about that. And you can also find us on Reads Across America on Wednesday evenings. That's where you can listen to us, or you can find us on any of the other podcast channels out there on YouTube. We're all over the internet. But yeah, feel free to reach out if you need anything. Or if you have any suggestions for future shows, or you want to put us in contact with somebody who can spread some better information out to veterans about different service organizations out there, please feel free to reach out.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. Awesome. Well, hey, it was great sharing all this information with everyone. Reach out if you need anything. Just like John said, we'd be happy to share any information we come across or we have at hand.
Sounds good. All right. Until next time, we will let you all go and have a great one. Be safe.
All right. Out here.